10,000 homes are sitting on the U.S. housing market right now that you cannot see on Zillow. You can't see them on Redfin. You can't see them on Realtor.com. They're not for sale to you. They're for sale only inside one brokerage's private network. And there's one specific carve-out buried inside the National Association of Realtors' own playbook that makes this completely legal. That's why today we're pulling apart the broker loophole hiding 10,000 homes from buyers right now. 3 things you need to understand before this video ends. First, the exact one-paragraph rule that lets a brokerage hide a listing while telling the seller it's been marketed. Second, the 48 hours in May 2026 when 43,000 Chicago area listings vanished from Zillow overnight, and the federal lawsuit that just went live because of it. Third, the contested data on what going off the MLS actually costs an ordinary seller, and why the people defending the practice can't agree on the number themselves. Here's what just happened in Chicago. On May 8, 2026, Compass, the largest residential real estate brokerage in the United States by sales volume, terminated every direct listing feed it had with Zillow. Every listing, nationwide, cut off. 4 days later, on May 12th, Zillow filed a federal antitrust lawsuit in the Northern District of Illinois. Case number 126CV-05451. The complaint named Compass and the Midwest Real Estate Data MLS, the cooperative that runs the listing database for the entire Chicago metro area, 48,000 subscribers, the largest MLS in the Midwest. Zillow's allegations: Sherman Act Section 1, illegal group boycott. Sherman Act Section 2, monopolization. Here's the line from the complaint that matters. Quote, defendants conspired to threaten to cut off Zillow's and any other competitor's access to all listings, a critical input for competition in the industry, in a naked effort to coerce their competitors to abandon pro-transparency policies. Then it escalated. On May 20th at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, Midwest Real Estate Data suspended Zillow's listing feed entirely. By the next morning, 43,000 active Chicago area listings, over 99% of the active MLS inventory in the third largest housing market in America, were simply gone from Zillow. Buyers searching for homes in Chicago, Evanston, Naperville, Oak Park were searching a near-empty map. 48 hours later, on May 22nd, federal judge John J. Tharp Jr. granted Zillow a temporary restraining order. The listings came back online. The case isn't over. The preliminary injunction hearing is scheduled for July 1st and 2nd, 2026. But for 2 days, the third largest housing market in America went dark. And the rule that made it possible isn't in any federal statute. It's a 2-paragraph carve-out written by the National Association of Realtors itself. In November 2019, the National Association of Realtors adopted what's called the Clear Cooperation Policy. The text reads, within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with the other MLS participants. That's the headline rule. Submit it within 24 hours. No pocket listings. Everyone competes on the same data. But then you read the next page. Section 1.3 of the same policy creates what's called an office exclusive. And the text reads, if the seller refuses to permit the listing to be disseminated by the service, the participant may then take the listing, office exclusive, and such listing shall be filed with the service but not disseminated. That's the entire loophole. 51 words, 1 sentence. A seller signs a piece of paper saying they don't want their home on the MLS, and the listing brokerage is now allowed to market it to its own agents, its own internal buyer database, its own private network, without ever putting it on Zillow, Redfin, or Realtor.com. And because it's never publicly listed, there's no days on market clock. There's no price cut history. There's no comparison set. Here's the part nobody's reporting. On March 25, 2025, the National Association of Realtors didn't tighten this rule. They loosened it. They introduced something called multiple listing options for sellers, which created a brand new category, delayed marketing exempt listings, that lets a brokerage keep a listing off the public syndication feeds for a period each local MLS gets to define. So the public position from the National Association of Realtors is, clear cooperation is still in force. The reality is the carve-outs around it are getting bigger every year, and one brokerage has built an entire business model inside those carve-outs. If you own a home, you're shopping for one, or you're about to list, this is the kind of structural shift that determines what your next transaction actually costs you. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell. The next 2 videos in this series go deeper. You don't want to miss it. The brokerage is Compass. In November 2024, Compass publicly launched what it calls the 3-phased marketing strategy. Phase 1, private exclusive. Soft launch inside the Compass agent network. No public listing, no MLS submission. No days on market counter. Phase 2, coming soon. Limited public visibility on Compass.com. Phase 3, full MLS, full syndication. By spring 2025, Compass CEO Robert Redfin told CNBC that almost half of Compass sellers, over 10,000 sellers this year, had elected to start their home as a private exclusive or coming soon. Redfin's own words from the Q2 2024 Compass earnings call, quote, "Price drop history is the killer of value. The reason why private exclusives at Compass are so popular is because they do not have days on market when they go up. They do have price drop history." He also called the clear cooperation policy anti-homeowner, and he predicted on the record that clear cooperation will end. This is the largest residential real estate brokerage in America. According to Real Trends Verified, Compass closed $262.23 billion in transaction volume in 2025, roughly 11% of all U.S. residential dollar volume. Redfin has publicly stated his goal, 30% market share in the top 30 cities. He calls it the 30-30 vision. And in September 2025, Compass announced a $1.6 billion all-stock acquisition of Anywhere Real Estate, the parent company of Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's International Realty, and ERA. Expected to close in the second half of 2026, the combined company would have roughly 340,000 agents, the largest brokerage consolidation in the history of American residential real estate. If that deal closes, one company will exceed the federal antitrust 30% concentration threshold in at least a dozen major metros: Boston, Washington, D.C., Chicago, San Diego, Austin. Here's the question every seller wants answered. Does going off the MLS actually cost you money? The data is contested. 4 major studies, 4 different answers. Study 1, Zillow, February 2025. A review of 10 million home transactions in 46 states. Finding: off-MLS homes sold for a median of $4,975 less than comparable on MLS homes. 1.5% less. In California, that gap widened to $30,075 less, 3.7%. Wait, it gets worse for the simple story, because the same month, Compass's own internal study claimed pre-marketed private listings sold for 2.9% more than MLS-only listings. Then in April 2025, Bright MLS, which runs the Mid-Atlantic, published a separate study of roughly 100,000 listings and found officer exclusives showed no price advantages and took longer to sell. And again, it gets worse. In February 2026, a University of Georgia researcher posted a working paper on SSRN analyzing 700,000 transactions in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. The headline: off-MLS sold for 1.7% more. But buried in the same paper, that premium largely vanished and became statistically insignificant after clear cooperation took effect in 2020. The researcher called it a compliance paradox. Here's the math example that actually matters. The median existing home price as of April 2026, per the National Association of Realtors, is $417,700. A 1.5% off MLS haircut on that median home is $6,266. With the 30-year fixed mortgage at 6.48% as of Freddie Mac's June 4th, 2026 reading, $6,266 is roughly 3 months of principal and interest on the loan. Now, here's the controversial take. Whether the dollar gap is $5,000 or zero or negative, one number is not contested. According to a January 2025 Harris poll commissioned by Zillow, 2,087 U.S. adults, 63% of people who sold a home in the past 5 years said their agent recommended a private listing network. And 68% of those same sellers said the agent never explained what the difference between listing on the MLS and listing privately actually cost them. That's a public market with a private back room, and the people running it are not telling the people walking into it what room they're in. Drop a comment below. If your real estate agent has quietly steered you into a private listing without explaining what you were giving up, what would you do? We read every comment. Like this video if you want us to keep pulling apart the rules nobody in the industry wants to talk about. So where are the federal regulators on this? On March 17, 2025, the Department of Justice filed a supplemental statement of interest in a Boston area real estate antitrust case called NoSelect v. MLS PIN. Buried on page 7 of that filing, in a footnote, the Antitrust Division wrote, direct quote, "Industry participants have made public statements about the division's purported position on clear cooperation policies that are misleading and out of context." Then they wrote this, "The division has not taken a position that such policies standing alone are anti-competitive." In plain English, the Department of Justice declined to call the office-exclusive carve-out anti-competitive. That's the closest thing to a green light a brokerage like Compass could ask for. Compare that with what the states are doing. On March 16, 2026, Washington State signed Senate Bill 6091 into law. The vote was 49-0 in the Senate and 92-1 in the House. The law bans marketing a home to an exclusive group unless the home is simultaneously marketed to the general public. Effective date is around June 10, 2026, within days of this video. Wisconsin signed a parallel law in December 2025, effective January 1, 2027. Similar bills are pending in Illinois, Connecticut, and Hawaii. The states are tightening. The federal government is silent. And in the gap between them, 10,000 private listings have quietly become a business model. 3 things to do this week, ranked by leverage. If you own a home and you're not selling, you have the most exposure and the least control. When a neighbor's home sells off MLS, that sale weakens the comparable sales record appraisers use. Per Fannie Mae's Selling Guide, Section B4-1.3-08, appraisers select comps from your neighborhood, ideally in the past 12 months. Fewer visible comps means a weaker comp set, and a weaker comp set can mean a lower appraised value when you refinance. Watch your neighborhood's MLS activity. If you're a buyer, ask your agent directly, in writing, are there Compass private exclusive listings or coming soon listings in my target zip codes that I'm not seeing on Zillow? If the answer is yes, demand access. Cross-check Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, and Homes.com. Each portal may carry a different slice of inventory during these brokerage disputes. If you're a seller, and this is the highest leverage move, insist that your listing be entered on the local MLS. Then verify it. Go to Zillow, go to Realtor.com, search your own address. If it shows active on the MLS, you're in. If you can't find it, your home is sitting in someone's private network, and the data you just watched suggests at best you're neutral on price and clearly losing days on market. If this video helped you see the structure underneath the housing market, hit subscribe. Next, we're pulling apart something just as quiet and a lot more expensive happening in Florida. Because here's what this all comes back to. The MLS was invented in 1880s San Diego when clerks physically ran updated property sheets between brokerages twice a day, built specifically to kill the information asymmetry that ruined buyers and sellers. 140 years later, the largest brokerage in America is rebuilding that asymmetry, one signed seller waiver at a time. Speaking of quiet rule changes that just cost homeowners billions, Florida just rewrote the rules on condominium reserves, and a wave of forced assessments is coming for Florida condo owners this summer. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so the next video lands in your feed the moment it drops. And watch this one next. We'll see you next time.